Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Backend Development track. In this video, we'll be introducing ourselves into backend development. Backend development is the skill that powers the web. In this video, we'll understand what the backend is, how backend technologies work, some backend developer languages, and some of the tools we'll be using along the line. Now, backend in itself is the behind the scenes activities that occur when you're performing any action on a web application. Now, we've all visited websites, and some of the actions we perform, some of the basic actions we perform on websites would include registration, logging in, making payment, and a whole lot of computations on the website. Now, backend development enables all this to happen. The backend of a website enables all of this to happen. Backend technologies are a combination of your servers, your application, and your database. The skills you need to be a backend developer would be a combination of these technologies, which is your server, your database, your programming languages, and your application programming interface. Now, breaking them down, a server is what enables a web application to be accessed globally. A server is what you use to present your work to people. A database is used for storage. A database is where you store computational data and user data that your application receives. Your programming languages are what you use to compute how a web application should work. And your application programming interface, which is API, is what enables people from outside to be able to access the web application that you have built. Now, some of the roles and responsibilities of a backend developer is you have to understand the goals of the website and come up with effective solutions. In the last video, we mentioned that software development is all about problems and solving problems, or making processes easier. So you have to understand the problem as a backend developer and come up with effective solutions. Also, storing data. We have mentioned that the backend developer is responsible for the database. You have to ensure that what you are calling from the database and sending out to somebody is something that the person should actually see. You don't want to present somebody's data to another person when the person is not supposed to get access to it. So the data of any web application, user data, financial data, all of those things is in the hand of the backend developer. You have to make sure that you programmatically state who should see what and who should not see what. Now, you are responsible also for developing payments processing systems, like accepting data, securely storing those info, and making charges to that payment. Also, it is the job of a backend developer to manage, to create application programming interface which would work across devices. You are also involved in the architecture of a system and data science analysis sometimes. Developers also are responsible to organize the logic of the system which runs across various devices. You also need to be involved in building frameworks of the architecture to make it easier to program against. Also, the most important skill you should have is to implement algorithms and solving system-related problems. Now, some of the other things that a backend developer would do would be to have working experience of frameworks, ability to write tests because you have to test your applications. You have to also have an awareness of security concerns. You also have to know the differences between the delivery of your application from mobile to desktop. And also, you need to, it's not just to be a backend developer, you need to have basic understanding of front-end technologies, both mobile and web, because you have to, your backend application would be consumed by the front end. So you have to understand basically how this works so you can be able to write properly against that. Now you also have to understand session management, which we'll be talking about as we go on. Let's go on ahead to the backend development languages. Now, as a backend development developer, you have to understand at least one server-side language or backend programming language. Some of them would include Java, Python, Ruby, .NET, C, C++, Node.js, which is JavaScript. For this bootcamp, we'll be using JavaScript. We'll be using Node.js. Now, what is Node.js? Node.js is an open source server environment. It's a server language. Node.js is free. Node.js runs on multiple platforms: Windows, Linux, Unix, Mac, and lots more. Node.js uses JavaScript on the server side. Node.js can create dynamic page content. Node.js gives you access to create, open, read, write, delete, and close files on the server. Node.js can collect form data. Node.js can add, delete, modify data in your database. Node.js, in a Node.js file, it contains files that will be executed on certain events. We would understand all this as we continue in our development. A typical event is someone trying to access a port on the server. Node.js files must be initiated on the server before having any effect. And Node.js files will have extension .js. We have seen a whole lot of extensions. We have .txt, which is a text file. We have .docx, which is for a document file, a Word document or whatever document file. We have .pdf, which is for PDF files. For a Node.js file, we would be using the extension .js. All this will be understood as we dive into development. Now, we'll go ahead to set up our work environment. Before we go ahead with our installation, let's reiterate over the fact of what the program is. We have said the program is a set of instructions. These instructions might look like this. We have console.log hello world, which means that we should print hello world to the screen, or for example, we could have a if statement which says if 2 is greater than 1, print out that 2 is greater than 1, and else, which means if it's not, you should say 2 is less than 1. So this is how sets of instructions look like. This is how some of the basic codes that you can write when you are writing your software programs. Now, I wrote all of this inside what is called a text editor. I'm sure you must have used text editors like Notepad at some point in time before, and if you have not, so fine. Notepad is used to edit text files. A text editor simply allows you to write and edit text, and it does not have anything built in to help you write code. For the purpose of this bootcamp and for the purpose of your software development journey, I would advise that you go ahead and download a code editor. Some of the most popular code editors are Sublime Text, Atom. There are a lot, but we'll be using Visual Studio Code for this bootcamp. Code editors are one of the most important tools for programmers. They are specifically designed to edit the source code of computer programs. It's still a text editor, but it is designed to help you write code. You see, this is looking so plain. With code editors, it would help you format it and sometimes tell you when you are having some errors in the kind of code you are writing. It provides colors and a whole lot more advanced tools. So first thing we are going to download would be our code editor. I mentioned we have a couple of code editor, but for this bootcamp we'll be using Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is actually the most popular code editor that you can have. So you just search for Visual Studio Code and visit the first link that you can see. It's supposed to be code.visualstudio.com.
and what you want to do is to download. So if you are on a Windows, you just have to click download for Windows. If you are not, there will be documentation on how to go about it. So immediately you click this, you get it downloaded. I've already downloaded it, so I'll just go ahead to install it. The process for installation will be pretty basic. The installation is pretty straightforward. You just have to accept the agreement and you click on next. The next steps will just be a bunch of clicking next. If you want the desktop icon, I think that's important. Then you go ahead and install it. Now Visual Studio download and install is finished, so you can click to go ahead to launch. Now the second thing would be downloading would be the Node.js. Node.js, like we said, is a runtime environment which includes everything you need to run a program that is written in JavaScript. It is used for running scripts on the server to render content before it is delivered to a web browser. Node.js also has installed npm, which we'll be needing. Npm stands for Node Package Manager. It is an application and repository that we use to develop and share JavaScript code. So you just go ahead and install Node.js by clicking on your version. If you're on a Mac, you install for Mac. If you're on a Windows, you just click the Windows installer and it downloads to your system. After downloading, you just have to launch your setup wizard, the Node.js you just downloaded, and it comes like this, and you just have to click next, read through the license and accept, then next, then you might need to check this or not, so I wouldn't for now. And you can just go ahead to install Node.js to your system. Okay, so we have successfully installed Node.js onto our system. We can confirm that by just checking our command prompt. You can just power up your command prompt, search for command prompt, and to check that Node is installed on your system, you just have to type node in your command prompt -v. So our Node.js is installed and it's version 16.4.0. You can also verify that our npm is also installed by just typing npm-v. So npm is also installed and our version for npm is 8.3.1. Inside the command line, you can basically test that our Node.js is running by just typing node, and inside here we can do the same commands that we did in our text editor and just say console.log hello world, and it has printed out hello world 4. So the command we wrote was that it should print out hello world, and it did that over here. So in the next video, we would delve into introduction to Node.js properly, and we'll be using our Visual Studio editor to write up code for our softwares. Thank you.